Okay. Okay, now. So I given one example for table functions. Okay. Now, next. Suppose, like, see, you create, okay, then the create what's it, the following what procedures and functions for bank applications. So there is a bank application. For that application, you create this following procedures and functions. One is okay. One is account opening. Okay, na? One account opening, account closing. Next one, balance inquiry. Balance inquiry. Fourth one, money deposits. Fifth one, money withdrawal. Money withdrawal. Sixth one, money transfer. Okay, money transfer. Next, the statement between two given dates. Next, statement between two given dates. Latest end transactions of particular customer. So these are all day to day in banking. Account opening, account closing, balance inquiry, money deposit, money withdrawal, money transfer, statement between two given dates, latest end transactions. Now, but all this based on what are the tables? Then tables is what? Account table, account number. What is the account type? Next one, balance. There is a table. What the table is? Transaction, ID, type, date, amount, account number. ID, type, date. Yeah. So one table is for storing account details. Another table is for storing transactions. But your transaction IDs automatically should be generated automatically. For generating the transaction ID, create one what's it? Sequence. You know, no? Sequence. Start with 1, increment by 1, max value 1000. Max value something. Some 999. So these are the two tables, one sequence. Create this first. Next, create what's it? Procedures and functions. Then for account opening, what you create? For account opening, what you create? What you create means procedure or function. Account opening. Account opening, customer opens account. When customer opens account, what we have to do? You open account. When you open account, your details are inserted into bank database. Yes. Then insert. Insert is a DML. For DML, create procedure. For DML, what? Create procedure. So procedure. Create procedure. Account closing. Customer close. Customer wants to close account. When customer closes account, details should be deleted. Delete is DML. Create what? Procedure. Balance inquiry. You want to check the balance. Then balance, checking the balance. Return the balance. Customer want to check the balance. So return the balance to the customer. Then function. Money deposit. Customer wants to deposit some amount. Then deposit. Deposit means when customer deposit, balance should be updated. Then procedure. Money withdrawal. Procedure. When customer withdraw the amount, balance should be updated. Money transfer. Procedure. Statement between two given dates. Customer is asking the statement, you have to give the statement to the customer. Then function. What function? What is the statement contains? Statement. What statement contains? Statement contains balance. Statement contains your day-to-day transactions. Whatever the transactions you have done, all the transactions will be there in the statement. Transaction 1, transaction 2, 3, 4, 5, like that. Yes. Then function. But that contains function. That function, one value na records. Records. Then table valued function. TVF. Here this function should return only balance. Balance is a single value. Then scalar valued function. Here you have to return records now. Statement contains transactions, multiple records. Then return the records. Then table value. Latest end transactions. Latest end transactions. N value 5. Latest 5 transactions. Then table valued function. In this 5 procedures, 3 functions. One is scalar value, 2 are table value. Then okay now. Then after creating this, now you create front ends. You know front ends? Then create a menu. What the menu is? One menu option is accounts. Then one is accounts menu. Another one, what's it? Transaction. Account. What? New. Next. Close. This is submenu items. Menu items. New. Close. Transactions. Transactions. Then what is this is? Like what is this is? Credit. Debit. Next one. Transfer. Next one. Statement. User selects what's it? User select this option. New. When user selects new, one form should be open. When user selects new option, one form should be open. What is that form? Then here what it should ask? What is the account number? What is the type? What is the balance? Account number, type. Next one, balance. You create this form. Okay, create this form. Account number, type. Next one, type. You take like this. What the type is? Okay, and you take the type like this. What is that is? Here one is what set? Yes, one is what? C. Next one, balance. Balance. Then enter the balance. Take a button. What the button is? Submit button. Submit button. So then input account number, select type, enter balance, click submit button. What this? What this is? What this is called? Radio buttons. You know. Okay. Okay, now then. So then when user selects close, when user selects close, one form should be open. Input account number. There is a button. What is that button is? Close. When user selects credit debit, one form should be open. In this form, input account number. Next one, type. What is this is? WRD, withdraw, deposit. Next one, input amount. Then submit button. When user selects transfer, one form should be open. In this form, you should ask what is the source account number, next target account number plus amount, next transfer. When user selects statement, statement, one form should be open. In this form, input what? Account number, input type. What is that is? One is between what's it? Between two dates, start date, end date. Next one, what is this is? Latest n, enter the n value. If you select two dates, you have to enter start date and end date. If you enter latest, here enter n value. Next, there is a button here, submit button. Okay, then. So, when user click this, then show the transactions. What that is? List of transactions. ID, transaction ID, type, date, amount, like this. This is what this is. What is this? This is all front end. Then from this front end, so these procedures and functions are what? Invoke. From this front end applications, they call this procedures and front end. Okay. Okay, now next. That. So you try these examples. Okay, now you know how to create this. Next, but I given one example also. What is I already given example for this money withdrawal. Next, okay. So what is the difference between what is the difference between procedures and what functions? What is the difference between procedure and function? What is the difference? Procedures. What is the one difference is what? Procedures what? Procedures may or may not, may or may not return say value. Procedures may or may not return say value, but function must return a value. Function must return a value. Procedures may or may not return a value, but function must return a value. Procedures, okay, procedures then procedures can return how many values? Procedures can may or may not means procedure can return the value or not? Yes. How many values it can return? How many values it can return? One now. How? How procedure returns values? How procedure returns values? Procedure returns values using output parameter. Procedure returns values using output parameter. You take one output parameter, returns one value. You take two output parameters, returns two values. You take three output, returns three values. That means procedure can return multiple values or not? Yes. Procedures can return multiple values. Procedures can return multiple values, but function always returns what? Always returns one value. So procedures can return multiple values. Function always returns one value. Next, procedure returns values using what? Output parameter. But function returns value using what's it? Function returns values using return statement. Function returns values using return state, not using output parameter. Returns values using return statement. Yes. Returns values using output, returns values using return statement. Then procedures. Can we call procedures from SQL commands? Can we call procedures from SQL commands? After creating the procedure, can we call the procedure from SQL commands? Huh? Can we call procedures from SQL commands? We created a procedure, raise salary. In the beginning, we created one procedure. Can we call the procedures from SQL commands? No. Can we call functions from SQL commands? Yes. Okay. Then so you see this, like once again we created a function. What is the function you created? Experience. Experience. This returns what? Experience. And how you call the function? We created a function CALC. This function is CALC. How you call the function? Select dbo.calc. That means function is called from what? Select statement. But procedures, you created one procedure. What is the procedure you created? Suppose in the beginning you created one procedure. Okay. Then sorry. You created one procedure, but you cannot call the procedure from WhatsApp. You cannot call the procedure from. This is the procedure you created, money debit. But how you execute the procedure? Execute SQL commands, but functions can be executed from SQL commands. Functions are created for that purpose only. You want to create a function, you want to call it from SQL commands, then you have to go for function. So then another difference is procedures cannot be called from SQL commands, but functions can be called from SQL commands. Okay, now then you want, you can test it like what then. So then if you want, you can test it. Then you see this, our database now. Oh. Now suppose here, like you know any function, any, like see this programmability, then what's it? Procedures. There is a raise salary, there is a debit. Functions, there is a what's it? Scalar value, CALC, get experience, get names. I created 3 functions. Yes. Now let's see. So let me call this get experience. Select what's it? Select what? DBO dot what? Get experience. Suppose I'm passing employee number. What this gives? 7844 experience. Suppose 41 years. So you are calling this function from select command. Yes. There is a procedure. What the procedure is? There is a procedure. What is the procedure? Raise salary. Then suppose select what? Raise salary. That takes 2 arguments, employee number, amount. Next one, there is a variable. So yes, then output. Then can we call this from select command? It gives what, sir? Error. We cannot call this function from procedure from what? Select SQL commands. Procedures cannot be executed from SQL commands, but functions can be executed from SQL commands. Okay, that is one. Next, and inside the procedure, procedures can execute. Inside the procedure, we can execute DML commands, insert, update, delete in procedures, but in functions we can't execute DML commands. Understood or not? Then so in procedures we can execute what? DML commands, but in functions we can't execute what? DML commands. In procedures we can execute DML commands in functions. In functions, we can execute DML commands. We cannot, in functions, we can't execute what? DML commands cannot be executed. We cannot execute DML commands. DML commands cannot be executed in functions. So procedures can contain DML statements, but functions should not contain what's it? DML statements. DML statements are not allowed in functions. Okay, then. So then you want to test like what? See, create or alter. Just see this function F1. Function what's it? F1. Suppose returns what? Some integer. Function F1. Like let's take returns F integer as begin. Then what I'm doing? Update emp set sal equal to sal plus 1000, where employee number equal to some employee number, return 1. Okay na? Why? Because why return? Because function, when function is there, compulsory return must be there. So compulsory should return the value. Just I'm returning value. So just this is for testing, just to execute is update command. Update is DML command now. So just to test whether DML commands are allowed in function or not. So let me create, what is this is error. What is the error is? Invalid use of what's it? Invalid use of what? Update within a function. That means update is not allowed in function. Okay na? Then so is delete is allowed? Delete from emp where employee number equal to 7844. Is delete is allowed? Invalid use of side effecting operator delete within a function. Delete is also not allowed. So that means DML commands are allowed or not allowed? Not allowed. But DML commands are allowed in procedures, but not allowed in functions. Okay, then next. So like create procedures. Okay, then create procedures to perform what? Create procedures to perform DML operations. We create procedures for DML operations. Next one, create functions. Create functions for what? Calculations. For DML, for inserting, for updating, for deleting. For inserting, for updating, for deleting, then create what? Procedures. If you want to do calculations, then create function. Create function for calculations or to fetch value. If you want to fetch value from database or to fetch value or to fetch value from database. From database you want to fetch the value, then create function. On database you want to insert, update and delete, then create to the database you want to insert, update and delete, create procedure. So then you want to fetch value from database, then create function. So like means, see, create procedure to update balance and create function to get balance. Create function to get balance. If you want to update the balance, create procedure. To get the balance, create function. That's all. So what is this is difference between procedures and functions. Okay, then. So first one, procedures what may or may not return a value, but function must return a value. Procedures can return multiple values, but function always returns only one, because in procedures you can take multiple output. If you take two output parameters, returns two values, but function always returns only one. Procedures returns values using output parameter. Function returns values using return statement. Cannot be called from SQL commands, but functions can be called from SQL commands. In procedures, we can execute DML commands, but in functions, we cannot execute what's it? DML commands. Procedures are created to perform the DMLs, and functions are created for calculations. So create procedure to update, create function to get balance. Okay, that's all. Next, another one, difference between scalar and table valued functions. Difference between scalar and table valued functions. Okay, scalar and table valued functions. And so scalar, then what this is, returns what's that? One value. Table value returns what's that? What? Records. Records. Okay, na? This returns records. Then next. If you want to return the rows, single row or multiple rows, then use table value. You want to just return only one value, then scalar. Next is scalar. So then, what is the return type? Return type must be scalar types, like integer varchar, like. So here, what is the return type? Huh? What is the return type? What is the return type of table valued functions? Return type must be table. Return type must be table. Yes or no? Here, yesterday we created na. What is this is? Here, return type. Table. Return type must be table. Then. But in scalar, return type must be integer varchar. Here, return type must be table. Return type must be table. What is the next one? Here, one is what? Here, next. Here, in case of scalar function, return expression is what? Return expression. After writing the code, you finally return, finally return the value. What is that return expression must be? Return expression must be scalar variable. Return expression must be, you see that examples. Okay, now then suppose here, then so here you see this in this example. So Where is the result? Result is there in C. And finally you are returning what, sir? C. This is written expression. In the written expression, what? Variable. What is this variable? Is integer variable. That means written expression is what? Scalar variable. Here also experience. This is returning experience. What is EXP variable? What is the type of this variable? Integer. Here in this example, finally returns what, sir? S. What is at the rate S is varchar. That means this is also scalar variable. In scalar valued functions, written expression is what? Scalar variable. But in table valued, this is table valued function. In table valued function, what is the written expression is? Select statement. Okay, then. So here one example is, your written expression is what? Scalar variable. Here written expression is table value. Written expression is what? Select statement. Here written expression is scalar variable. Here written expression is select statement. Okay, then next one. And this is called, scalar functions are called, you call it from this functions now. Functions are called from, again yeah, just now I given previous, then procedures like what, sir? Call from SQL commands cannot be, but functions are called from. Then scalar function, after creating the scalar function, you call it from select statement now. But in which class you call this? In which class you call? Select class. Table valued functions are called in from class. Then, so scalar valued functions called in what? Select class. And table valued functions are called in what, sir? From class. Called in select class, but called in from class. Okay, then so this returns one value, but this returns what? Records. But this return type must be scalar type. So your return type must be table. Return expression is scalar variable. Your return expression is select statement. This is called in select class, but this is called in from class. That's all. So this is a difference. Then what is the next topic is triggers. Then triggers. What is trigger is, then what is the definition? What is the definition of trigger is? A trigger is also a named TSQL block. A trigger is also a named TSQL block. Like a trigger is also a named TSQL block. Like what? Like procedure. It's like a procedure is a named TSQL block. Means is created with name. Function is a named TSQL block created with name. Trigger is also created with what? Name. So it is a named TSQL block like procedure, but difference is, but executed implicitly by SQL server. executed implicitly by SQL server. Executed implicitly by SQL server. That means what is the difference between procedure and trigger? Procedures, after creating the procedure, procedure is executed explicitly? Is procedure is executed explicitly or implicitly? Explicitly. After creating procedure, we have to call the procedure. If you don't call the procedure, it is not executed. But triggers are not like that. Triggers are executed what? Implicitly. We don't need to call the trigger. Trigger is executed what's it? Automatically by SQL server. So that's why I said implicitly by SQL server. Okay, na? Then. So that is the main difference between procedures and triggers. Procedures executed explicitly, triggers executed implicitly. Next. So, but what for triggers are created? What for you create the triggers? Then triggers are created like what for procedures are created? Again, same thing. Like what for procedures are created? Just now in differences also we discussed with bars. Procedures are create procedures to perform DML. Procedures are created to perform the DMLs. You want to insert the data, you want to update the data, you want to delete the data, create what's the procedures. Procedures are created to perform the DML, but triggers are created to control the DML. Procedures are created to perform the DML, but triggers are created to control the DML. Controlling the DML means what? Controlling the DML means you are allowed to insert, update, delete only Monday to Saturday. Sunday you are not allowed to insert, update and delete. I want to control this. Then how? Triggers. Monday to Friday you are allowed between 9 to 4 or 10 to 4. Allowed between 10 to 4. Saturday you are allowed between 10 to 2. Monday to Friday 10 to 4. Saturday 10 to 2 allowed. DMLs are allowed. Sunday whole day not allowed. DMLs are not allowed. Then how this can be done? This can be done with the help of triggers. Procedures created to perform the DML. You want to insert, you want to update, you want to delete, then create procedure. But insert, update, deletes are only allowed. Only this time, only these days, this time allowed. Then triggers. Okay, then. So created to control what? DMLs. Next. And triggers are created. Okay, triggers are created. Triggers are created to, okay, and triggers are created. So created to enforce complex rules. Enforce complex rules. Triggers are created to enforce complex rules. Okay, then. And already you know how to enforce the rules. You know how to enforce what, sir? Rules in SQL server. Tell me how to enforce the rules. There are two methods in SQL server enforcing the rule. One method already you know. One method already you know. What is that method? Rule. I want to declare a rule. Then how? Rules can be enforced in two ways. One method is what, sir? Trigger. But tell me first method. Rule means what? Tell me some example. Rule. I want to declare a rule. What is the rule? Salary must be minimum 3,000. If I give the example, you are giving the answer. Yes. Salary must be minimum 3,000. That is a rule. I want to declare a rule. Then name should not be null. Number should not be duplicate. These are all rules. How this type of rules can be enforced? By using constraints. One method is what? One method is constraints. Another method is trigger. When we use constraint, when we use trigger. Rule is simple rule, use constraint. Rule is complex, use trigger. Okay, na? Constraints are used for simple rules. If the rule is simple, use constraint. If the rule is complex, then use trigger. One rule is there, but I'm not able to declare the rule by using constraint. When something not possible with constraint, solution is, when not possible with constraint bus, then solution is trigger. Okay, na? You're not able to declare the rule by using constraint. When not possible using constraint, then create trigger. That's all. So constraints are for what's it? Simple rules. Triggers are for what? Complex rules. For simple rules, use constraint. For complex rules, use trigger. Okay, then. Next. Next one. Triggers are created to audit database operations. Triggers are created to audit the database operations. Auditing the database operations means, so which user is performed the operation, what operation is performed, at what time he performed the operation, which record he updated, which record he deleted, which row is inserted. So that is called what? What that is called? Auditing. Recording. What we are recording? What you want to record? I want to record what's the operations. Which user is inserted, which user is updated, which user is deleted. So you want to record that. That is called what? Auditing. So triggers are created for auditing. Next. So then triggers are created to manage replicas. And triggers are created to manage the replicas. Okay, replica means what? Replica means what's it? Duplicate copy. That's all. These are the different purpose of what? Creating what's it? Triggers. The different purpose of creating triggers. Okay, na? Then controlling what? DMLs. So and so date, so and so time is allowed. Between only this time is allowed. Before that, after that, not allowed. Then trigger. So created to enforce what? Complex rules. Okay. Then and to audit operations, to manage what's it? Replicas, duplicate, copy. Okay. Then so suppose here just example. What the managing replicas means? Customer table is there. Okay, na customer ID is there, name is there, address is there. So customer ID is what's it? 10. Address is what? HYD. So there is a replica. What is the replica? Customer T. Suppose customer ID is there, name is there, address is there. So here also 10. Then this is name, some name. Address is what's it? HYD. Okay. Then so what is this is managing replicas. Here I change the address. In this table, I'll change what's that? Address, BLR. In this also immediately the address should be changed. If I make any changes here, immediately this should also be changed. So immediately it should be changed. Understood na? I'll change this address was, I'll change this address BLR to suppose Mumbai. Then in this table also immediately this BLR should be changed to Mumbai. So what that is called? Replicas. Managing what? Replicas. If it is updated, here also it update. So then we can create what? We can create triggers for this. So if you want to manage the replicas, so create triggers. Okay, then that's all. So these are the like what's that purpose of creating what? Triggers. Then how to create? What is the syntax? What is the syntax is create or alter trigger name. Create or alter trigger name on table name. On table name. Create or alter trigger name on table name. Next, after or instead of. After or instead of. Insert, update, delete as like statements. That's it. Okay, then. So this is a syntax. But triggers are not created with parameters. Procedures are created with parameters. Functions created with parameters. But trigger is not created with what? Parameter. Because trigger is not a subprogram. Trigger is not a procedure is a subprogram. Function is a subprogram. You create procedures and functions. You call it from another program, front-end application. But trigger we don't call it. Trigger what, sir? We don't call the trigger. So it's not a subprogram. When it is not a subprogram, then we don't pass parameters. When we pass parameters, if you call the procedure, if you call the program, then you pass the values. But we don't call this. Okay, now? So it's executed what? Automatically. Okay, then. So it's not a subprogram. Next. But here, see, I said triggers are executed automatically. But when this trigger is executed, so if you see this, there are two triggers. One is after, another one instead of. But what is this trigger is? After trigger. Okay, na? So after triggers. What is this after triggers means? Like suppose here, see this. So for example, okay, then. So for example, then okay, na? See, for example, this is one trigger. You created one trigger. Trigger means program. Trigger means program. You created one trigger. What is this trigger is? After updates. So you submitted update commands. You submitted update command to SQL server. When you submit this update command to SQL server, first SQL server executes what? First SQL server executes what? Update command. So what is executed first? Update command is executed first. Next, what is executed next? Trigger is executed. First it executes update command. Next it executes trigger. Because you said what? After update. Okay, then. So if trigger is after, then first SQL server executes update command, DML command. Next SQL server executes what? Trigger. Okay, then. So if trigger is update, if trigger is after, then if trigger is after, then And first SQL server executes DML, then it executes what? Trigger. Trigger is after, then first SQL server executes DML, then it executes trigger. Then what the next one is? What? Instead of triggers. So here trigger is executed after the DML. Okay, then so next trigger is instead of. If it is instead of, if trigger is instead of, then so you submit what? Suppose here, then this is not after. What is this is? This is instead of. Instead of what's it? Update. Just assume instead of update. So then you submit update command. If you submit update command, SQL server executes what? Trigger, but it will not execute update command. Instead of executing the update command, SQL server executes what? Trigger. So here always what is executed is trigger is executed, but DML is not executed. But in case of after, what are executed? Both are executed. DML is executed, trigger is executed. First DML, next trigger. But in case of instead of, always what is executed is trigger is executed, but DML is not executed. Then so if trigger is instead of, then SQL server, execute the trigger instead of executing DML. Okay, then that's all. So that's all. There are two. One is after, another one instead of. Let's see example. Okay, then let's see one example. So suppose here create trigger to not to allow. These are all rules controlling the DMLs. I want to control the DMLs. I want to enforce rules. Then create trigger to not to allow. Not to allow. Not to allow what's it? DMLs on EMP table on Sunday. Create trigger to not to allow DMLs on EMP table on Sunday. Create trigger to not to allow DMLs on EMP table on Sunday. Sunday DMLs are what? Not allowed. DMLs are not allowed on Sunday. Then what this is? Create or alter. Create or alter. Follow the syntax. Trigger T1 next on which table? EMP. On EMP. Just follow the syntax. trigger T1 on table name. Next one after instead of. Suppose I am using after. After what? Not to allow DMLs. What is not allowed? Insert is not allowed, update is not allowed, delete. All the three are not allowed. Then what we have to write? Insert, comma, update, comma, delete. You have to write all the three. That means trigger is executed in all the three cases are not. Yes. When you submit insert command, when you submit update, when you submit delete command, trigger is executed. So if you write only update here, then trigger is executed only when you submit update command. But I want to execute the trigger in all the three cases because I want to check all the three: insert, update, delete. Then you have to write like this. What is that is insert, update, delete. Next as next. Next. So here, what you have to do in this trigger? What we have to do? We have to check whether user is inserting, updating, deleting on Sunday or not. If at all user is inserting, updating, deleting on Sunday, then stop. Then tell me how. We have to check. You have to check what's it, day is Sunday or not. How to check the day is Sunday or not? If then date name DW get date equal to Sunday. If this condition true, that means day falls on Sunday. If the day falls on Sunday, then what you do? Day is Sunday. If the day is Sunday, user is performing insert, update, delete. Yes or no? But the day is what's it? Sunday. So then, but here, see this. But when this trigger is executed, boss, the trigger is executed after insert, after update, after delete. So already insert, update, delete is completed. After that, you are checking day is Sunday, but day is Sunday. Then what? This insert, update, delete is invalid now because he inserted the data on Sunday. So we have to cancel that insert. How to cancel that operation? Sorry, inserted on Sunday, boss, because the trigger is executed after na. The DML is already completed. After the DML, so trigger is executed, but this condition true. That means he inserted on Sunday. Then cancel that insert. How to cancel the insert? Roll back. Execute what? Roll back. Because trigger is executed after the DML. So, but the DML is on Sunday. He inserted the data on Sunday. Inserting Sunday is invalid. So then cancel that insert. How to cancel the insert? Roll back. When rollback is executed, insert is cancelled or not? That insert, update, delete is cancelled or not? Yes. Plus is doing illegal operation. Is trying to do what, sir? Illegal. Updating, inserting, deleting on Sunday is what? Illegal. So I want to show some error to the user. I want to throw error. Okay, na? Because he is doing illegal operation, I want to show some error. How to show the error to the user? How to show the error? Raise error. Raise error. Then I want to give the message. What that is? Sunday not allowed. Next one 15 comma 1. Next and Sir, okay na? Then now create this. Then I create commands completed what successfully. So table is what, sir? Sorry, trigger is created. Trigger is created. Where it is created? Database. Create na database. Where we can find this in database? Where we can find this programmability? What's that? Programmability. Then database triggers expand. There is no trigger. These triggers are database triggers, but our trigger is not database trigger. Our trigger is table trigger. Trigger created on table, but this is what triggers created on database. But our trigger is database, not database trigger. Our trigger is table level trigger. Where we can find our table? Go to the table. On which table you created? EMP table. Expand EMP in this triggers T1. Okay na? That. But what is this is here? Here in programmability, what is this is? Database triggers. Triggers created on database. Because you say on EMP na, that means trigger is created on EMP table. If you say on what's it? Database, then that is called database triggers. Okay, then. Okay, now trigger is created. Now test it. Test it. Test it means you don't need to call. You don't need to call. It's automatically executed. Automatically executed. Yes. Then, so suppose here I submit this command. Update EMP set commission equals to 500 where employee number equal to 7369. I submit this update. What happens? First thing what happens? So first steps, first one, update is executed. Second step, trigger is executed. First one what? Update is executed. Second step, trigger is executed. Inside the trigger, it check the condition. Today is Sunday, condition false. When condition false, then condition false. Then what? So then, but maybe 7369 is not there. 7844 something. 7844. Then so it is there. Yes, one row affected. It's not giving error. Why? Because today is not Sunday. Okay, na? Then do one thing. Suppose here, what's it? Adjust day and time. Otherwise, here you change the condition. Friday. Okay, na? Otherwise, you change the time. Then. So then. Okay, here you have to change. Change what's it? What is this is? 22. Okay, na? 22 is Sunday, no? Yes. Then so it's changed to 22 Sunday. Now let's systemd change it to Sunday. Now let's run this command. Then first update is executed. Suppose I am updating the commission to 800. First what is executed? Update is executed. Next what is executed? Trigger. Condition true. What happens? Roll back. That means this update is cancelled. Next one what? Raise error. Exception is raised. Let's see. Sunday not allowed. Okay, na? Then that's all. Okay, like now. But here, what I'm doing, sir, here, here actually for testing the trigger, I'm going to date settings, change the date to Sunday, testing the trigger like this. Okay, na? Suppose assume in like real case. So end user is inserting updating on Sunday. Then next he'll get the error or not. Is inserting is updating on Sunday. Because trigger is there. Then what is this gives? Error. He'll see the message. What is the message? Sunday not allowed. Then he'll go to the date setting, change the date to Monday and execute the update command. Possible or not? Yes. Just for testing, I changed it now. Same thing he can do that now. Yes or no? Then security is there or not there? Security is there or not there? Not there. Then security is there or not? Yes. Security is there. Okay. Then so here actually see here this is what server and this is what is this is clients, server and clients. Then where the triggers are stored, where the triggers are created, you create the triggers now, all the thing create with whatever you execute with create command that's stored in database. Where is the database? Database is there in server. Trigger is also there in server. Where you insert, update, delete the data from, you don't do directly in server na. Where you do insert, update from this clients. So user will insert, update, delete from client. Is updating from client. When he's updating from client, he got the message Sunday not allowed. Then what he can do? He can change the date settings of client system, but he cannot change the date settings of server system. In our code, what is the get date refers to? In our code, get date. Get date refers to client get data, server get data. Server get date. So you cannot change the server date. Yes or no? What you can do? You can change only client date, but you cannot change server date. Security is there or not? Yes. Then. Okay then. So we'll continue this tomorrow.